informed with Pacific Mornings.
Te alofa lava, welcome back to Pacific Mornings on 5:31 PI. The time is 34 minutes past 7. I'm your guest host, Seina Folava Sanile Chadwick. AJ Muliaga is one of the young Pacific voices stepping into the world of politics and media through this year's Youth Parliament. As a member of the Pacific Youth Press Gallery, he's been in the thick of the action at Parliament this last week, observing debates, interviewing youth MPs and bringing a Pacific lens to the issues that matter. He joins us now live on the show. Te alofa lava, AJ, how are you?
Morning, I'm very good, thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, let's wind the clock back, man. Let's take us back. What was Youth Parliament like for you, going in as someone for the Youth Press Gallery?
I can definitely say it's better than the real thing, just like other media sources have said. One of the
You're not wrong, probably.
One of the really good things about it was that I was the only Pasifika Press Gallery member. So me being the only Pasifika person there, I was able to put the real Pacific lens through the politicians down at Parliament.
Can you take us back to what it was like then when you're going in there? You're the only Pacific person in what people describe as the cauldron when it comes to New Zealand politics, right in the beehive. What was that like for you, getting a first-hand look into how things operate in there? Were you intimidated at all? What was going through your mind?
I was definitely intimidated, being the only Pasifika person, but because we had a strong Pasifika community that we built before we went into Parliament, I didn't feel as alienated as I thought I would. But definitely sitting up at the gallery, there was that line that I was the only Pasifika person. There's a lot of Balangis around me and Asians. But then as soon as we heard some speeches that, felt attacking, all the Pasifika people came together and just there felt welcomed and connected again.
You know what it's like in there now through your experiences, but I'm just thinking, you applied to be there, you wanted to be there. What made you want to be in that space? Because it can be quite cutthroat.
Yeah. So at school, I do a lot of article writings. And so I thought that I'll do this, for the experience, see what it's like. And because politics is on the top of my list for future endeavors, I just wanted to see what it was like and just get a taste of the real thing. Yeah.
And after your experience last week, is this something you are keen to pursue? Can you see yourself in that political space as a reporter or someone as part of the press gallery?
Definitely, either in the press gallery or just sitting in the debating chambers, fighting for our Pasifika people, our rangatahi.
Yeah. And anything that stood out for you in terms of the topics that you thought, oh, wow, man, that's hectic or that's crazy? Anything stood out for you?
Yeah, there was one topic that stood out to every single Pasifika and Māori down at Youth Parliament last week. We had youth MP who said that Pasifika and Māori were receiving too much race-based scholarships, that it was a lazy approach, and if we keep going to this lazy approach where we give out race-based scholarships, then the next generation is just going to be judging people on who they are, on their cultures and not who they really are. That stood out to us, Pasifika and Māori down there, and it caused a silent protest where there were tino rangatira flags being flown around. We had Bibles being put on our desks. People were putting down their ula falas, their patus, their taongas. And it's still being talked about today in our group chats. But
so hold on, just let me get this straight. So a youth MP stood up and was against the idea of, quote, race-based scholarships, I call them equity scholarships, but they were against this?
Yeah. But it felt because I interviewed a couple of the youth MPs and they said that it felt like a deliberate attack on Pasifika and Māori. Quote unquote, he said, we are fed up, we're sick and tired of race-based scholarships. And he specifically said Māori scholarships and Pasifika scholarships. And just after he said that, you see all these Pasifika youth MPs place down their ula falas and just anything that symbolized Pasifika or Māori. And it was set as a reminder whose whenua we're on and whose house we're in.
Did you feel when you were in that chamber that the current political climate we're in this country is quite divisive. Did you feel in that moment that it became quite divisive between, I guess, Māori and the Pasifika communities and the non-Māori Pasifika who looked at these equity-based scholarships and thought, nah, I'm not a part of this? Like, what did you feel in that moment?
Um, there was definitely like a sense of division in the chambers, but that was only the second um, incident, I guess. The first one, we were told that Pacifica and Māori need to start being grateful about what the government was already doing for us. And I guess from there was already that kind of divided us, but it didn't really divide Māori and Pacifica. It really just divided the right wings and the left wings. And because it was a non-partisan event, it got really political, like, Labour against National, NZ First and ACT against Te Pāti Māori and the Greens. Yeah.
I'm listening to this as a Samoan, as a proud Samoan, and I feel a bit
Yeah.
under attack as well here. I can only imagine what it's like for you and the rest of our Pasifika MPs in Parliament as well, youth MPs, sorry.
Yeah. Um, when we did feel that attack or those comments coming towards us, we all came together. And in the chambers, you see everyone, together outside of the chambers, at the hotels, having dinner, like our Pacifica community stuck together. Like no one felt belittled, although in those chambers at that moment, people did feel belittled, but then outside, they rose back up and they still continue to fight, especially our Te Pāti Māori youth MPs. Yeah.
What's the vibe like after? So you're in the debating chamber. Obviously, it gets quite heated in there. People are saying things. Afterwards, once it all wraps up, do you get a chance to mingle with all the youth MPs, regardless of what political background they may have, or is it still quite separated?
There wasn't really any, like, outside of the debating chambers, whatever happened in the debating chambers, if you felt divided, like that division has to stay in there basically. But outside of the debating chambers, everyone was like amongst each other. There was no like, oh, I'm not going to speak to you because this is what you said. Everyone was still equal out there. Um, Everyone was like happy to talk to each other. But then I guess when we all flew back to our homes and on our group chats, we've got like so many group chats. One of them is the formal debating group chats. And then from there, people just voiced what they wanted to say about these speeches down at Parliament.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what's your view in just terms of our political system in general, because you're still in secondary school, so you're coming at it from a youth perspective. I'm a lot older than you, but I'm interested to see from your generation, what was your takeaway? What are your thoughts about our current political system, and do you think it's set up or will allow for Pasifika people to come in and thrive? Like, I'm really interested to get your take on that from your youth perspective.
With youth parliament, it was like a really good experience for us Pacifica. But in terms of like the system now, I'll say it's not only Pacifica people that's not being prioritized. I'd say especially our youth isn't really being prioritized by this new system. In fact, I was at a Labour Youth Hui in the weekend, and we were all sharing ideas. And most of the rangatahi were saying that they don't feel like this parliament or this new government or the new system that's in really cares about them, especially with the new budget that's come out, and 19 or 18, 19-year olds have to rely on their parents if they don't have jobs. Yet there isn't really any jobs out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
but
just changing topics slightly on this. Also, I just want to get your opinion in on, as a journalist, as a Pasifika media professional. When I look at our industry, a lot of things have changed since I started, well, a long time ago. But in your view, how do you feel like the media in general, does it portray Pasifika stories, and do they do it accurately? Like, did you see enough representation in the youth press gallery that the Pasifika stories were accurately reflected, or do you think there needs to be more work done in order to have more Pasifika voices in there to be able to accurately reflect the Pasifika stories that come out of Parliament?
there definitely needs to be more representation down at youth parliament. In fact, I submitted a pitch through to another source, and they declined it, and they said that it felt like a very advocate moment. However, they can't really talk about that topic. There wasn't any other reason given. So I feel like if there was more of me or like more Pacifica people down there and we all pitched these stories out, more people would be picking it up. But there's only one of me trying to portray all of these Pacifica voices, but they just keep getting declined. Another thing was that the media that kept coming down to cover, youth parliament, all they talked about was a censorship. However, there was more that happened in youth parliament that we wanted to be covered by the actual media. However, they didn't want to cover it. For example, our Pacifica and Māori tried to talk about how the speaker told them to sit down, and one of the news outlets just left. Like they didn't want to hear them out. One stayed until the end of that press conference, but nothing has come out yet.
Looking to the future for you then also, what are the next steps for you? What are your plans in the future? Are you going to try and have a crack and get into journalism, or what does the future hold for you?
Yeah, definitely. Journalism, politics. I'm really passionate about politics, either here in Aotearoa or back home in Samoa. Just so that, there needs to be a change in the system. And it's not just here in New Zealand that the systems need to be changed. Samoa is a really big one. And for journalism, it's just, for me, it's all about making the unheard voices go heard. And especially our underrepresented communities, Pasifika and Māori. Yeah.
Awesome. Te love Muliaga no. Also appreciate your time, AJ.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. That was AJ Muliaga, a member of the 2025 Youth Parliament Youth Press Gallery. If you missed any part of that,